Hi everybody. Today's video, with Christmas coming up, I'm going to tell you the 5 things you need to know if you get a new 12 string for Christmas. First thing, tuning. When you tune up the 12 string, if you're a guitar player already, you're going to tune this up probably to where you normally would tune a guitar, E, A, D, G, B, E. And you might instantly run into trouble because the 12 string guitar really doesn't play well at standard pitch. One of the things with the 12 string, if you play a 6 string guitar, you're looking at about 65 pounds of tension on the neck, and your fingers are fighting that tension to play. When you tune up a 12 string, you're looking at about 220 pounds. It's crazy how much string tension there is on a 12 string. When you go to play it, it's going to feel tough. You're going to have to build up your muscles to do this. If you tune to standard pitch though, when I first got my first 12 string, it was maddening. I had a nice Takamine. It was my first 12 string. Takamine back in the days was not necessarily a premium brand. It was more like Ibanez. It was a Japanese brand, and they did knockoffs of like Martin guitars. And I was to be tuning the thing up, put a new set of strings on, and I'm tuning. I get to the octave on this G string. That's a high G. That is a minor third higher than the E string on a light gauge electric guitar set. Generally that string is about a 9 or a 10, and you go to tune up to that pitch, it's going higher than what it's really designed to do. And what happens is, bang, you pop that string. And I remember, like, you put a new string set on, you're putting it in, tuning those strings up, and all of a sudden, bang, that string would go again. And I went through so many G strings of that high G string, and I'm going, this is really crazy. Then somebody told me, well, are you tuning up to standard pitch? Most people tune their 12 string down. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know that. That was a revelation to me. And when I tried tuning it down about a half step, in other words, my E string, instead of being an E, what's called a concert pitch E, I tuned it down to a D sharp. If you have an electronic tuner, that's the way it would read, is a D sharp. That's the same thing as an E flat, so it's a half step lower. It sounds pretty close to your ear, to what you would normally hear, and the 12 string becomes a whole lot easier to play. Now, as I explored learning other 12 string players' music, well, I discovered there was a wide range of tunings that people used. Leo Kottke, for example, would tune his E string down to a C sharp. That's a step and a half low. On his open tune songs where he's in G tuning, he's got this string tuned to like a B flat. That's like down in the baritone guitar range. Other 12 string guitars tune down a whole step, a half step. Very few ever play at full pitch. What do they do if they want to play with other instruments? Use the capo, right? They put a little capo on there and tune it up, kind of tweak the tuning, and they're good to go. So that's one way of dealing with the issue of the string tension. A lot of 12 string manufacturers don't warranty their guitar if you keep it at concert pitch, at an E. You don't hear so much of that anymore, but it used to be they tell you, right, in the instructions that came with the guitar, said, hey, don't tune this thing up to concert pitch, it'll void your warranty. Having that much tension on the neck can bow the neck forward. You get this weird curve in your neck. It can cause the bridge to pull up. It can cause the top to belly and swell. It's really hard to build a 12 string that's going to be good sounding and resonant and light enough, with the bracing light enough so that it can sound good, and then have it be stable and sturdy. So tuning down a little bit helps that a lot. Now I know there's going to be a bunch of people who are going to say, oh yeah, well I've got a Taylor, it's designed to be tuned up to standard pitch, or I've got my Guild. Well, you're talking at $3,000-$4,000 guitars, and many of those have 2 truss rods built into the neck, and they're designed in order to be able to take that tension. And you're paying a premium price for that. So more than likely you've got a student quality 12 string, something under the $1,000 range. Well, that's going to be, you want to tune down. So word to the wise, tune the thing down to a D sharp, E flat, and or even to a D if it sounds good to you. I have guitars that I keep in several different tunings. Second thing, electronic tuners don't do the trick. If you have a little electronic tuner like this that you clip onto the end of your headstock, I think it's pretty close. But what ends up happening, the nuances between the octaves, it gets pretty close, but when you go to strum a chord, it'll sound out of tune sometimes. What you have to do to check your tuning is check your octaves. Now, how do you check your octaves? Okay, you have to know the notes on the guitar for one thing. So if you're a brand new guitar starting on a 12 string, you're gonna have to learn where your notes are anyway. But let's say, okay, you wanna check your bottom string against your third string. I fret a G note, and I'm gonna play the octave on the G string. They should be the same. If you tune with a tuner, they may be out slightly and you have to tweak it. Now the next string, I'm going to go up to the 3rd fret, I'm going to play a D, and this should match the octave on the 4th string. Now I'm going to go to the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, that's an A, that ought to match the octave string on my 5th string pair. And then up again to the 4th string, 2nd fret, and that's going to match that's an E, it's going to match the octave on my E string. Those octaves match. They should come out sounding in tune. If they're out a little bit, but you'll pick it up, but your tuner will often show those strings as being in tune, but then when you check them with the octaves, there's a little bit of a discrepancy. So you have to develop your ear. I haven't seen a tuner yet that is perfect on tuning a 12 string. You always have to check manually. The human ear is better than the tuners when it comes to the really fine increments. Third thing, string gauges. Depending on the type of guitar and what tuning you're going to keep the guitar in, you may want to select a different string gauge. Most 12 strings, when they are shipped from the factory, have a standard light set on it, which is pretty much 11s on the bottom up to a 47 on the top is the heaviest string. That's a pretty standard light gauge. You can go lighter and you can go heavier depending on what you're doing. If you're tuning way down to like a D or a C sharp, you can actually go as heavy as medium strings, because what will happen is if you put a standard set of lights at that string tension, they're going to get really, really floppy. They're going to rattle and buzz a whole lot, and they're going to have intonation problems because they're going to be kind of stretchy and bendy. And that can cause all kinds of tuning problems as you get up the neck. So you could actually go to a medium gauge if you tune really far down. If you're trying to cover the music of Leo Kottke, then you want to go to something like a medium gauge string. John Pierce, Diodario makes a good medium gauge set that starts with a 12 on the bottom that goes up to about a 52 or a 56. One of my favorite brands is Ernie Ball, makes a medium set that's more like a medium light. It has 11 on the bottom and goes to like a 52. They're nicely balanced, and they last a long time, and they have a good balance between string tension and flexibility, especially when you tune down to like a D or a C sharp. Now, if you're going to tune up to standard pitch, let's say you need to work in your home studio or you need to gig out with your 12 string, you need to keep it at standard pitch. Well, you have some options. One thing you can do is Ernie Ball makes one of the lightest sets of going, and they're the composition what they call silk and steel. Instead of having a core inside that's like a steel core, they're wrapped with a silk kind of core. They're akin to a classical guitar string. And they're much softer to the touch. Their string tension is less. They're not nearly as bright sounding. This guitar is strung with silk and steel, Ernie Ball, silk and bronze. This has a 9 on the bottom and goes up to like a 42 on the top or something like that. It's pretty light. It's almost like an electric guitar gauge of string. But this guitar is tuned to standard pitch. So. So that's very easy to play though with this particular set of strings on it. Now, if I tuned a regular light gauge set of strings up to this, it would be a fight, and it's not really great for the guitar. The guitar itself suffers quite a bit. You have to really crank down the truss rod and risk damaging your instrument that way. So that is another thing to keep in mind, is the type of string gauges and the composition of the strings. I've even seen some guitarists use sets that are made for, like the nickel sets that are made for electric guitar and put them on a 6-string guitar, especially if they have to do anything particularly complicated and they're going to amplify the instrument with a magnetic sound hole pickup. You can do that as well. That is a possibility. The fourth thing is the truss rod. Every modern guitar has a truss rod built inside it. Sometimes it's like a little hex screw that's inside the end block of the heel of the neck here, and other times it is a little cover that's up here, and there's 3 little screws will hold that on. You take that off and you'll see the top of the truss rod. The truss rod works kind of like a molly bolt, and you take like a little Allen wrench, and it's usually supplied with your guitar. You put it in there and you can turn it a little bit in order to counteract the tension of the strings. Your guitar, if you're buying a brand new one, especially if it's a student model guitar, something that under $1,000 range, your truss rod has probably not been adjusted since it left the factory, if it was adjusted at all. Sometimes they just install them and expect the music store or the vendor to adjust them, and that doesn't happen because those guys are busy. They don't take time to do it. They just want to sell stuff and get it out the door. So you want to check that truss rod. Now, the ideal time to do that is before you even tune it up the first time. But more than likely, it's Christmas morning, you're excited, you want to tune this thing up and play it. So after a day or so of playing this, and you start noticing, gee, well, the action on this thing is really high, what happens is the strings pull your neck forward like this. And that means that the action down this range is going to get higher and higher and higher till it stabilizes out. But that'll end up with a neck that's got a significant bow in it, and it will also make the guitar unplayable up in these higher registers. It makes it a lot of work. The truss rod is designed to counteract that. So what you do to adjust your truss rod is you take the tension off the strings, just loosen them up a little bit, so that you're not completely slack, but just take them down so that they're not in tune, just maybe a half step or a whole step each one. And then you'll use your little Allen wrench and you can tighten that up and adjust it. If it's too tight, if it's all the way to the end, you might need to back it off a little bit. Matter of fact, that's always a good idea. The first thing you do when you insert the truss rod is to go backward just a little bit before going forward. Righty tighty, lefty loosey, right? That's the rule on that. Adjust your truss rod and then get it to where it will counteract your strings. If you go to like from a light gauge string to an extra light gauge string, or if you go from lights to mediums, you're probably going to have to do a truss rod adjustment. That's easy to do. Now, if you don't trust yourself to do it, you can take it to a music store and have their guitar tech do it. But it's really easy, and I'm not the most mechanically adept person in the whole world. I can do it. I've been doing them for 40 plus years, and my guitars all play great. So that's something that you just need to learn how to do as a guitar player. It's just part of the maintenance of your instrument. The other thing for the action that you can do is, if your action is really high after you've adjusted the truss rod, the bridge saddle right here, and I thought I had a blank one sitting nearby me, but I don't see it. I guess I put it back in my kit. The bridge saddle is basically, it's a little piece of bone or plastic. When you loosen the strings, take them off, you can take the bridge saddle out of the little slot here, and you can actually put on a piece of sandpaper and then rub it back and forth. Just keep it level and straight up and down, keep it perpendicular. And you can file off a little bit, a 1/16th of an inch, a 32nd of an inch. It's not much, but it makes a difference in the action. You can try that and then put that in and out. Do that when you change strings maybe, and that way you can lower the action just a little bit. You only do just a little bit at a time. Don't get all crazy with it and take off like 1/8 of an inch. That'd be too much. So that's action height adjustment. Nut slots usually don't have to be adjusted, but sometimes you have to get those, you have to kind of tweak those, resize them. If you start, when you're tuning, you start hearing this kink, 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 kink in there when you're turning, especially if you go to a higher string gauge, it means you might have to widen the nut slots a little bit. One thing I do to prevent that from happening is you can put some lubricant type stuff in there. I take chapstick, just like chapstick you put on your lips. Just smear a little chapstick up the top there. You don't see it. It doesn't make a smell. It doesn't harm the finish on the instrument, but it helps kind of grease those slots a little bit so the strings move freely. That's kind of a little tip that you can use. Well, that's all I've got for my list there. Tuning, electronic tuners, string gauges, truss rod, and action height adjustment. Those 5 things, if you know how to do those things, you get this 12-string thing playable up and going fast and have a great time with it. I remember when I got my first 12-string, it wasn't for Christmas, but I remember I tuned it up the first time and I played some harmonics. That sound just riveted me. It just grabbed my soul and shook it. And I've been playing 12-string ever since. been like 45 years or something like that I've been playing 12 string. I play 6 string, play banjo, banjo-tar, electric guitar, but the 12 string's always been my true musical voice, and I hope that you'll find inspiration and a lot of fun in playing. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll catch you around. Check back, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Thanks for watching. Bye.